This is a video key for the Algebra 2 Trigonometry Graphing Formative Quiz. I'm going to walk through the quiz with you so that you can watch this at your leisure and figure out what you need to know. All right, so first thing I'm going to do with this graph, the first problem is writing an equation for a graph, is I am going to draw the maximum line value of this trig function, and I'm going to draw the minimum line value of this trig function. Noticing that my maximum value is at 2 and my minimum value is at -6, I can average those to discover that my center value is at 2. -2. This provides me with my k value. So I now have a vertical stretch to go into both my sine and my cosine equations. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out my period. So I pick any 2 points that represent one full cycle. And in this particular case, I'm going from 2 to 10, which means that I have a period of 8. This allows me to calculate my frequency, knowing that frequency is 2 pi divided by period, and simplifying that, I get that my frequency is pi over 4. I now have 2 of the 4 things that I need in order to write an equation. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the distance from the center to either the max or the minimum, and notice that they must be exactly the same because this is in fact an average. This is a centered value. So that gives me an amplitude of 4. I have 3 of the things I need to write my equation. Now the question is, am I going to write a sine equation or a cosine equation? In this case, I want one of each. So I know that sine starts on the center line and goes up, and so therefore my sine equation will start right here with a horizontal shift of 0. I also know that cosine starts at a maximum and goes down, which means that my cosine graph would start right here, and notice that it's starting at x equals 2, so that gives me an h value of 2. So now I can write my 2 equations. They both have an amplitude of 4, and notice that I'm color coding these for you. Hopefully you can see them in the video. This is going to be a sine equation. This is going to be a cosine equation. My frequency is pi over 4 for both equations. X minus h, I'll leave myself a space there while I write x minus, my h is 0 for the sine graph. I don't need to write the 0, but I can. I'm going to write it there just to make it clear where that went. And h is equal to 2 for my cosine graph. And finally, plus k plus my horizontal shift, I will write a -2 on both of those equations. So that's an easy and efficient way to find the equation for a graph. Excuse me. So now let's go the other direction. I need to graph the line, which means I need to identify the values that go into my graph. I notice here that I have an amplitude equal to 3, and I'm going to make a list of these off to the side. I strongly recommend that you do that. I see that my frequency is equal to pi over 4, which means that my period is equal to 2 pi divided by pi over 4. Remembering how to divide fractions, that's 2 pi times 4 over pi. The pi's reduce, and I'm left with a period of 8. My h value right here, remember this is minus h, which means that I have an h value equal to -4 in this case. and my vertical shift is equal to -1. So how do I graph? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my center line. In this case, I'm going to dash it in because I don't want it to be looking like part of my graph. There is y equals -1. So I have a dashed red line right there at y equals -1. My amplitude is 3, which means I'm going to go up 3 and draw a dashed line at y equals 2. And I'll go ahead and label that maximum. That's going to be y equals 2. And going down 3 from -1, 1, 2, 3, I have a minimum line at y equals -4. Next thing I need to do is decide my scale. I'm going to be starting left by 4, and I have a period of 8, which means that in this case I can certainly just use a scale of 1s. So I will just label my x-axis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Now my starting value is right here on the center line because this is a sine graph. That's my first point, -4, -1. On the center line, 4 to the left. My second point is at the very end of the cycle. So this is beginning, and this is ending. So I'm going to count over by 8. I know that sine starts and ends in the middle. I'm going to number my points. I'm made a big deal in class about I want you to number these points because I want to see that you know how to use this strategy for graphing. And my third point is going to be smack in the middle, which means that my third point is going to be at 0, -1, right there. Next thing I need to do is go halfway between 1 and 3. This is my quarter point. This is point number 4. Halfway between 1 and 3 is -2. And I know that for sine that's a maximum value, so that's at 2. And so I will put my point right there. That is point number 4. And finally, halfway between 3 and 2 is my 3/4 point. And that will give me a value of 2, -4, all the way down at the minimum. I'll label that point number 5. And now I will go ahead and graph. Is this the only way to graph a trig function? Absolutely not. But it is the way that we've been talking about in class, and it is the way that I want you to do this for the quiz, because it demonstrates that you understand the process rather than just calculating values of sine and plotting them on a graph. I hope this helps.